touch you and say, you look even better. Okay, now say it to me. Joyce, you look good. Thank you very much. This is how I get my daily affirmations, but I feel like we don't do that enough, right? Like, let's just go ahead and start Sunday just affirming each other and saying, you look good. Why not, right? Okay, so this morning we are going to look at Luke 1, and I'm going to start verse 45 to 56. Oh yeah, we got lots of words. Okay, so I'm going to start on 45. And blessed is she who believed that there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her by the Lord. And Mary said, my soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely, from now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and to his descendants forever. Amen. Here ends the reading of the word. Well, let me introduce myself a little more. Thank you for that introduction. It's always weird to hear your own bio to yourself. It's like, oh, I guess I did that. I am Filipino American, born here in LA, where the Dream Center is right now. That used to be the Queen of Angels Hospital. That's where I was born. So I was born a queen from the very beginning. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, anyway, sorry. I'm a digress, so I'm not going to do that. I grew up in Seattle, and then spent 9 years in the Bay Area, and then the last 4 years I've been in Pasadena, pursuing my doctoral degree, which I am so close to the end. So pray for me, family. I need to get to the end. My degree is in intercultural studies. And it's a missiology degree. And what they ask for us in our program in particular, is it's people who have been in the field, people who have been doing ministry for a while. So they say when you start your program, we want you to already have your question. Figure out what your question is, and that's what you're going to sit with for the next few years. So I had my question from day one, and I've been sitting on this for 4 years. I've been thinking about Mary, Mother of Jesus, for 4 years. Now, I said I'm Filipino, but I actually didn't grow up Catholic. I really didn't. I mean, the way that our family is, we're so deep United Methodists, we're like, no, RCA would be like, oh, that's different, like we don't know how to do that. But like so deep United Methodist that I knew nothing about Mary from the Catholic viewpoint. So some of you today might be hearing some things if you grew up Catholic or know about Mary through Catholicism. It might sound a little different because I'm gonna come at this from a Protestant perspective, a little bit different. But it's okay. You can teach me later because I got lots of. I've been doing it for 4 years and I still don't know as much as I need to know. So I welcome that. Because for Protestants, for us, we only talk about Mary around Advent, right? Like I'm talking about Mary during Lent. That's like crazy. We usually don't take her out of the box, right? We take her out with the ornaments and all that. We take her out of the box in December. We don't take her out of the box in Lent. That's the wrong time. No, but it's okay. So we can handle this. We can do this. We're going to take her out of the box today. And we're going to take her out of the box, place her on the little nativity scene, and we're going to talk about her in light of She Is Called. Yes. What an exciting series. I'm going to be honest and say that when God called me to ministry, I knew, when God called me to ministry when I was like maybe 20, 21, I was like done, right? When God tells me something, I just have done, okay. And as I got older and as I started doing ministry, there were people who didn't believe that I was going to become the person that God told me I was going to be. And for them, I've preached, I've been in different spaces. There have been plenty of men and women who didn't like me preaching. There's been plenty of men and women. My pastors were like, oh, you can't get a PhD. You're a pastor, but you're not a PhD student. I've had plenty of people tell me that. But for that, because I knew I was called, all I can say is, well, you're just going to have to catch up because God and I have stuff to do. I'm already on the way. You're just going to have to catch up. And so for those of you who feel like you've been called, but people are kind of, in that space saying, no, that's not you. You just direct them back to God and say, okay, you guys talk because we already had that conversation. I've already had that conversation. So that's how I'm coming with you this morning, is I've already had that conversation, and I'm going to share with you some of my conversations with God. And we're going to talk about Mary and the Magnificat that we just read and her song. Songs. Okay. Being Filipino, I love me some karaoke. I love karaoke. But I'm like a really bad singer, so that's the worst part, right? I'm the karaoke person that you don't want to hear, right? I love karaoke because I love hearing other people sing. I love sitting there and hearing other people, or maybe I'll like join in with someone else and hide behind their voice, I'm that karaoke singer. And the one reason why I really like karaoke is when you get through that book, those thick books, and you find that one song that that's my song, right? And for me, the songs that I find that I get excited about are the 80s and 90s slow jams. That's me. Give me some New Edition, some Lionel Richie, some Boyz II Men, some Troop, little spread my wings. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And I'm not gonna lie, like all across the board, Chicago, Journey, Hall & Oates, like I love that too. That's a good karaoke song, okay? But that's the kind of stuff when you hear those songs, it like makes you want to burst because we got all these feelings, and then when that song comes in, it connects with you in a new way, right? When you hear that song, it's like, oh man, I remember that time when I heard that song in the car with so-and-so, right? It brings you back. It brings you back to a new place. Songs have this way of bringing out in us all the things that have already been there. That was Mary. Mary had this song because there was stuff going on in her because she was about to burst into some new season, and she had to sing her song. She said, you know what, let me interrupt your regularly scheduled program. Pass me the mic. And she sang. At the top of her lungs. Actually, I don't know really how she sang, but I believe she would sing at the top of her lungs. And it was a song that I believe interrupted the silence of the night air. A song that interrupted the role of women in the first century. It was a song of power and prophecy embodied in a teenage girl. A song that interrupted the method in which the Jews thought the Messiah would come. And a song that prophetically interrupted the status quo and with a declaration of justice for the oppressed. Some scholars debate whether or not Mary really sang that song, but at the end of the day, Luke decided to put that song right next to her, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to say it like Mary sang it, or at least Luke said that Mary and that song need to connect. So we're going to connect her to that song. But before we get a little deeper into the scripture, I want to describe Mary's life. Probably what it was like. Like I said, I've been researching and studying Mary for the past 4 years. So we don't have a lot in the gospel narratives about Mary. There's not a lot of information. So what I had to do is I had to study first century Palestinian household codes. I had to study what was it like in the Greco-Roman world around that time for women in general. And then I would say, okay, well, if it was like that for them, then most likely Mary was also in that category. So this is what I found out. Let me paint this picture for you. In the first century, girls were given to marriage just before their menstrual cycle. So it was like at a really young age. It might have been around 12. Like in today's standards, it might have been around 12 with nutrition and kind of the way the body develops. I'm not really positive, but we know that she was really young. We know she was probably what we would consider a preteen. Infant mortality was high at this time in history, and so many children, particularly the sons, were really valued, right? The sons were valued because they were the ones that could keep on the lineage. They were the ones that could keep on the family business and the estate. You could keep handing down, what you had to your sons. You weren't really sure if any of them were going to make it, any of your children, because children died pretty easy. The medical, community there wasn't so established that way. And so they had as many, that's the reason why they married young, right? Because you wanted to have as many kids as possible for as long as possible so that you could give your family a chance to continue on in the generations. This is why the young age and why so many children in that first century. Also in the first century, because boys were the ones that you passed down your heritage to, your estate to. Girls weren't as valued. In fact, parents had a hard time attaching to any of their kids, but even more so to the girls, because even if you attached to your kids at that time, she would be gone in 10, 12 years, right? She'd be going to another family. That was just the tradition. That was the way they did it. That was the system. They knew their daughters would belong to another family. According to the Protestant tradition, Mary probably didn't come from a rich family. There was nothing immediately special about her. Before she would be known as the mother of Jesus, she was just Mary. Mary, who didn't have a title or popularity or significance. In fact, Luke points out that Joseph was a descendant of David, and he says nothing about Mary, right? Or we look at the Matthew lineage, Matthew 1, it says, that Joseph, it was like, we look at the line of Joseph, and we don't, and Jesus was born of Mary. But we don't look at her lineage, we look at Joseph's lineage. I have some art coming back, and different ways of artists have looked at Mary. This one's my favorite one. This is by Tim Okamaro. He's an artist in Brooklyn, New York, and he did a series called Queens, right? Because he's a Brooklyn, anyway. So I did this series called Queens, and this is one of my favorite ones. It's called Courage 3.0, and we'll be showing different images of Mary all throughout my sermon. I'm going to read Luke 26 to 33 and kind of give us a little bit more behind the scenes of the Magnificat. Luke 1, 26 to 33. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary. And he came to her and said, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was much perplexed and pondered what sort of greeting this could be. The angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus. And he will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his ancestor David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." Amen. Amen. She was called. That was her calling right there. It seems far-fetched that the God of the universe would choose to enter into humanity, a young, undervalued girl with no significance, until the angel Gabriel paid her a visit. "Greetings, you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you." Before she did a thing, before she answered the angel, before she had a baby, before she got the degree, before she got the job, before she said yes, before she got married, before she was known, before all of that, she was highly favored. Yeah. Not only highly favored, but God was already with her. While she was still a far-fetched choice to be the Theotokos, the God-bearer, the Lord was already with her. But Mary didn't really get that. Mary was greatly troubled at his words. What kind of greeting this must be. New Testament woman scholar Stephanie Buchanan points out, Mary didn't answer back saying like, oh, I know I'm God's favorite. I've been saying that. I'm just waiting for everybody else to catch up. She didn't say that. Instead, she said, "Who, me? Are you sure? Mary. I'm Mary from 532 Nazareth Street. You might want the other Mary, right?" She was greatly troubled. She was like, "I don't know. Are you really talking to me?" She didn't get it. Why her? She was an unexpected choice for anything as great as the angel was telling her. And the angel had to say it a second time because she was having such a hard time believing the first time. Oh, let me say that again. The angel had to say that twice because she was having such a hard time believing it the first time. I don't know about you, but God has to knock me on the head sometimes, right? Do not be afraid. You have found favor with God. The angel basically told her, "Yeah, I know. I'm speaking to the right person. You have been handpicked by the God of the universe for kingdom-changing assignment. Yes, baby girl, you're God's favorite. You have been called." Brothers and sisters, if you don't know it already, let me tell you, you are highly favored. You are God's favorite. Let me say it again like the angel Gabriel, just in case you need to hear it again. Yeah, baby girl. Yes, baby boy. You are God's favorite. My parents have this running joke, right? They say, oh yeah, Joyce, you're our favorite daughter. And then they turn to my brother, oh yeah, you're my favorite son. There's only two of us, right? There's only two of us, but we can be both favorites, right? So yeah, you can be God's favorite, and you can be God's favorite, and you can be, right? Every single one of us can be God's favorite, and are. In God's eyes, we are all favorites. We are all highly favored. By virtue of being children of God, right, as Pastor Peter said, by virtue of being God's creation, by being God's best work, we are in fact God's favorite. And just as the Lord was already with Mary before she ever said yes, the Lord is already with you. The Lord is already with, there is something about just knowing that God is already right here on my side, right here, that like just gets me through some stuff. The Lord is already with you. You are already God's favorite, and the Lord is already with you just the way you are right now. Not after you get cleaned up, dressed up, suited. Like, we don't have to get, right? This is not an everyday occurrence, people, right? Like, I don't have to get like this for God to already be with me and to be highly favored, just as I am, just as you are. Maybe you feel like, you know what, I'm just average, I'm normal, I'm just a regular person. I don't have a high position at work. I don't really get a big paycheck, or I have a nice car. I'm just average. Or maybe you feel like I'm not normal. I've been through some stuff. I'm one of the, for real, I'm going to be one of the least likely people that the angel would ever pick. Maybe you're like me and you're a little bit economically challenged, right? Prayer to prayer, paycheck to paycheck is like, okay, come on, hopefully I can meet that next bill, right? Maybe that's just me. Maybe you've been marginalized because of your ethnic background, or because you're a woman, or because of some other intersection in your life that pushes you farther and farther out of the standard, the norm, the preferred. So many of us here will probably find ourselves much like Mary. And you know what? We're still an unexpected choice to be Theotokos. That's the Latin word for bearer of God, that child bearer. That's, man, Theotokos. That's what you want on your business card. I am bearing God. That's who I am. That's my title. Why would God choose someone like you or me to do such important kingdom work? Who am I? I'm 5 feet tall. I'm barely 5 feet tall. I'm a brown girl who honestly gets overlooked all the time. Maybe because I'm short, maybe because I'm brown, maybe because I'm a woman, maybe because of all of it, I don't know. But who am I? I can't run very far. I can't run very fast. Who am I? My mom worked at the post office. My dad worked at the phone company. What good can come from Nazareth? What good can come from the middle-class immigrant family in the suburbs of Seattle? Who am I? And yet, the angel Gabriel said, Mary, greetings, you are highly favored. The Lord is with you. The power is in the unexpected. By any account of that day, she had very little status as a woman. One of the lies of the enemy that we face is that we aren't the right person for the task. Maybe you know the task in your life, but you're like, no, I'm not really that person. Right? We saw it in Moses. Moses was like, I'm not a good speaker. We saw it in David and Joseph. Oh, no, I'm too young. I'm too small. We saw it in Sarah and Elizabeth. No, I'm too old. I can't be having a kid at this age. Mary's excuse was logistics. How can I be pregnant if I didn't do the thing that you need to do right? Logistics. She got stuck in the logistics. In every physical and scientific way, she was not at the time qualified to have a child. And yet, that did not stop God from being God. And yet, that doesn't stop. Doesn't matter what we think we can do. It doesn't stop God from being God. All throughout the scriptures, God shows favor to the unexpected choices. God shows a personal favoritism to the least likely, the least equipped, the least qualified. I don't know how many times I've had to remind myself that the obstacles that I see in front of myself mean nothing to God. Mary got stuck in the logistics. How can this be? I don't have the kind of training or education. I don't know that language. I never do things like that, God. That's not me. I messed up so badly before. There's no way I can catch up to be the person you're calling me to be, God. I can't keep moving forward because I got to deal with all my stuff from my past. And yet, it doesn't stop God from being God. When we get stuck in the logistics, God says, yeah, I know. It seems a little far-fetched. I know. I hear you. But that's my point. That's how you know I'm God. This is what it means for us to have favor with God. When God chooses us far-fetched, unqualified, unskilled, unlikely individuals like us to be the Theotokos, to be the bearer of God, we know we have God's favor on us. And if we weren't unexpected enough, I find it interesting that God would choose the timing that God did for Mary. We often look at her pregnancy during this betrothal stage as like kind of the way that we know that she was a virgin before she got married. Like, oh, she couldn't have, done there's little kids in the room. she couldn't have with Joseph because, they weren't quite married yet. That wouldn't have happened in that custom. But think about it, right? Why would God choose to put her in such a scandalous position? Why would God choose to wait until she left her parents and just before she got married officially to Joseph? Why in this time and period would God say, yeah, let's make you pregnant now? That's some scandalous stuff. We think sometimes, oh, she was the Virgin Mary because, that was us, God showing us that he could make something out of nothing. Well, yeah, we found that in Genesis. He can make he can make the world out of nothing. But we have to consider, right? We have to consider that God purposely made Mary to become pregnant at the time she was pregnant, at a time where the optics were, that could be really illegal. At the time where the optics were real bad, so bad that Joseph was like, I'm going to try and leave. It wasn't until he had a dream that God said, no, go back. I'm working on it, right? But the optics were so bad that she could have been considered an adulteress, which would have been criminal. It would have been a death sentence. They could have stoned her to death for that. Why would God choose such a vulnerable time in Mary's young life to call her then? Why would God put Mary in a scandalous position before she was married? Why would he make her a single mom? We later see in Jesus' life that he talks to women that don't quite make sense in the religious ethos of the day, right? He talks to the Samaritan woman. Oh, she's the wrong race. He talks to prostitutes. He talks to Mary Magdalene. He talks to people that culturally that wasn't right. These were countercultural moves on Jesus' part. Men didn't talk to women, especially those type of women. It's not too far of a leap to think that the very first person God would enter into community with was a young woman with no title, no status, nothing. She had no legal covering because she wasn't officially married yet. But if she wasn't unexpected enough, now the angel Gabriel says, I'm going to make you even more vulnerable, being possibly found as an adulterer. I'm going to put you in a worse position than you already are. Joseph, and then God chose this timing, I believe, because that's how we know God's God, right? If we look at it under human accounts, it was like, that's crazy. Yeah. We look at it at God's account, it's like, no, that's me. Yeah. Let's add some more to the plate. Not only was she legally vulnerable, now she was economically vulnerable. Because what would happen is, once you leave your parents' house as a young girl, they economically are like, great, we already did the transaction. Go ahead, Joseph, you paid the bride price. We gave you the dowry. She's yours. But because the way that the marriages worked back in the first century was you had to have, you had this betrothal time, and then it wasn't solidified until you had kids. And it wasn't really solidified until you had a son. And so there's all this time where it's like she was economically vulnerable because at any point Joseph really could have left her and said, nope, I'm returning her. I want, here's my receipt. I want to bring her back. That would have put her parents in an economic position that would have burdened them because they weren't expecting to take care of the girl again, right? So this is a weird, if you follow baseball, right? It's that time between the bases. It's like, you're like, I don't know which way to go. It's a vulnerable moment. Economically, legally, she was vulnerable. This is important to Mary's story because it means that God chose Mary to be pregnant with Jesus at a time where she had nothing. She no longer had the covering of her parents and the safety of a husband. Sometimes God waits until we are at our most vulnerable before God calls us to do great things. Sometimes that's so people around us can say, oh, that had to be God because that couldn't have been Joyce. Joyce had nothing. Are you kidding? Did you look at her bank account? She had nothing. And sometimes it's so I can get myself out of the way. And so I can claim nothing for myself. Most of the time, I feel like God's working on me is just to get me out of the way. So he's like, come on, Joyce. Just get out of the way so I can do the thing that I already called you to do. It's so that God can get the glory for it. I don't need any more. I don't need any glory, right? God does not need me to do anything. But God's like, I'm bringing you along because I love you and I want you to be part of this. You don't need me. I want all the glory. The Apostle Paul sums it up in 2 Corinthians 9, and he says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in the insults and the hardships and the persecutions and the difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. God does great things through us when we are at our most vulnerable. I love how Elizabeth reacts, right? Elizabeth is her older cousin, and she says, blessed is she who believed that the Lord will fulfill his promises to her. I don't know why I never saw this during Christmas. I did not remember. Blessed is she who believed the promises that the Lord had told her. Someone make a meme out of that. I need that on my Instagram, right? Remind me that. Remind me that on the daily. Remind me that. Maybe God's been calling you to something or promised you something. Maybe it's been years and you've been ignoring it. But today, maybe it's time to get unstuck from the logistics or the obstacles that seem to be in your way, or get unstuck from the lie that you're not ready or equipped for the task. Mary believed that the Lord would fulfill his promises to her. And because she believed, she started singing a new song. Essentially, Mary said, pass me the mic. I'm about to go in. She sang a new song, and because she believed, because she had this time, she was like, okay, let's go. She sang this song of yes and. She sang the song that, yeah, I will give birth to Jesus, and. Each was a declaration of justice that this baby Jesus would bring. Notice the passage that we read today is written in the future tense, not the past tense. That was a prophetic statement. It was it's already going to be done. In fact, it wasn't just a prophetic statement, it was a war cry. Her song was a war cry. It's a cry against the darkness. It's a cry against the enemy's attempts at making us forget that there is always hope in Emmanuel, in God with us. It's a song that says, yes, I will be the mother of Jesus, and he will bring light to the darkness. Yeah, I will be the mother of Jesus, and his mercy will extend to those who fear him. And he has scattered the proud in the imaginations of their heart. And he brings down the rulers and raises up the lowly. And he will fill the hungry and send away the rich. And he has been merciful to his people, the people of Israel. Mary's war cry proclaims that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. Homeless people will be lifted up. Abused and oppressed people will be lifted up. The hungry will be fed. The orphaned will find family. The widows will find covering. Those with disabilities and sicknesses will be healed. Those who are depressed will find joy. Those who are mourning will find a new day. The marginalized will be centered. Righteousness will be restored because God chose to break into humanity through this unlikely girl. Brothers and sisters, there is favor for us unexpected people. We are being called to be the Theotokos, the God bearers to our schools, to our families, to our friends, to our communities. When I was saying, baby girl, baby boy, you are highly favored. I wasn't trying to be, out of my place. But I'm just saying, when a parent has a baby boy, baby girl, they're always your baby boy. Doesn't matter how old you are, right? Always. That's how God sees us. Always we are baby boy, baby girl to God. Some of us may have some specific assignments that have been in our heads and hearts for a while. God's been talking to us. Doesn't mean we've been listening. Doesn't mean we really believed it. But it's time that the Lord will fulfill the promises he gave to you. It's time to step into your favor. It's time to walk into your favor. It's time for us to sing a new song. It's time to say, pass me the mic. Maybe after singing that same song for a while, maybe you need a remix. Maybe you need to learn to sing it a little bit differently. And not just a song, but a war cry. A war cry that uplifts and empowers the poor and the vulnerable and the oppressed. It's time to remember that you are highly favored and that the Lord is with you. Go forth and be Theotokos. Be the God bearers. Be encouraged that you are God's favorite and the Lord is with you. Amen.